Hi everyone, my name's Ian Hongell, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the steading and the making behind that wine, which is intrinsically linked to this large format oak called Foudres. The steading is a blend of Grenache, Shiraz and Mataro, and it comes from vineyards that run essentially along the western ridge of the Barossa, which is soils that are rich in age, established vineyards, and tend to have a little bit of elevation and a slightly drier aspect to how they're grown. As a result, the yields are quite low, and we tend to get great intensity from these three varieties when they're grown in these locations. So one of the things that's at the heart of Torbreck is old established vineyards, and one of the phenomenons that comes with older vineyards is lower yields. And so for whatever reason in the history of this region, vineyards tend to be planted in 5-acre plots. And an interesting little anecdote that comes from that is from 5 acres, you get about 7 tonnes of grapes. And from about 7 tonnes of grapes, you get about 4,500 litres of wine, which amazingly is one of these Foudres. So what we have in the steading program is from the individual plots that make up the blend, Grenache, Shiraz, Mataro, each grower gets a barrel, and that individual wine will stay in that barrel for the duration of the maturation process, which is about 18 months. So the 3 varieties that we work with all bring different components to the blend. And if I start with Grenache, which is the lead variety, and normally that represents around 55 to 65% of the blending, depending on the year. Grenache is the lightest of the 3 varieties. It has beautiful raspberry fruit. It has a lighter colour but a vibrant intensity. And on the palate, it is quite soft, rounded, and sort of quite aromatic and perfumed in its flavour. So Grenache as a single varietal brings fragrance and an essence of medium bodied to the wine. The second variety is Shiraz, and the Barossa is obviously synonymous with Shiraz and can create all spectrum of Shiraz in our district, from very fragrant, elegant styled Shiraz coming out of Eden Valley to the full-bodied black licorice firm style Shiraz that you tend to get on the heavier soils with lots of stone in them. So when we go to pick a Shiraz component that makes the steading, we're looking for something that has roundness, generosity and spice. We don't want it to be too tannic, because this wine in essence is all about a medium bodied structure. So we're picking something that has a supple feel to it. And we tend to find that around the Greenock district, we can get Shiraz that has an element of fragrance to it, because it's quite a cool part of the valley, and is also more of a medium-bodied weight to the wines that we're using. And Shiraz, as it evolves, will bring colour and density and thickness to the wine, which complements perhaps the more medium-bodied element to what Grenache does as a standalone variety. So the final variety in the blend for the steading is Mataro. Now Mataro has other names around the world. In France it's called Mourvèdre, in Spain it's called Monastrell, but locally we just like to know it as Mataro. It's used in the most judicious percentages in the blend, and sometimes between about 10 and 20% depending on the season. What Mataro does is it brings a beautiful earthiness and a savoury note to the wine. It has some spice and fragrance on the nose, incredible dense colour, but it doesn't have a lot of primary fruit. So when we talk about raspberries with Grenache, or we talk about plums with Shiraz, Mataro tends to be more in the secondary note and a little bit more mysterious to define as an individual variety. What that brings to the blend itself is the element of the interest on the palate, and it helps to give tension to the wine and cut through some of that richness and generosity that Shiraz brings, whilst introducing the spice and fragrance of this unique variety. Mataro is a very old historic variety for our district, and so the fruit we tend to use tends to be extraordinarily old, and as a result, once again, we have very low yields and high concentration. As a wrap, the steading really talks about the history of our region. We're drawing on 3 very important varieties that are synonymous with Torbreck and synonymous with the Barossa Valley. They're coming off incredibly old sites and they have very low yield, and we want to capture all that fragrance, the feel of the wine, the texture of the wine in these beautiful large barrels called Foudre. And after that period of maturation, the wine evolves, it becomes one, and you get something that's medium bodied, layered with flavour, and will actually live for many years. So here's to the steading. Cheers.